My name is Blake Jennings. I'm in IL 510, doing our faculty presentation for Dr. Young in our Action Research class. Today we have Coach Bryant Ginn with us here at Ohatchee High School, Coach Casey Lipscomb, he's at Ohatchee High School too, and we have Stephen Gay with us today, who also is well. In doing my research, I did the research on improving ACT scores for free and reduced lunch students at Ohatchee High School. After speaking with our faculty and principals and all our administration, we kind of all agree that at Ohatchee we either have the high of the high or the low of the low. And we kind of wanted to look at why do we have those students making so low on this ACT. So with our problem statement was the cumulative ACT and the ACT reading scores among 11th grade students of different students' socioeconomic status is too large. And like I said, if you look at the data, I'll talk a little bit before we talk about the data. Our kids here at Ohatchee, like we said, they seem to be just way over the top, scoring. We had like 5 kids last year, 6 kids score like 32 or higher. So we have those big range of scores, and we want to see why. In the past 3 years, you can tell that with the cumulative ACT, that we have a 3.7 point difference between the free and reduced lunch students and the students who don't receive free and reduced lunch. And that number's way too high. And the number that stood out to me more than anything was our ACT reading score average. That reading score average was nearly up to 5 points difference between those students. So as a faculty, as our administration, we've got to figure out how to fix this. And one of the things in going back and doing our research is we've thought all the time, we've called it an achievement gap. And one thing that stuck out with me is it's more of an opportunity gap in giving these students who don't have access to the type of funds and resources that our students who are not low income do. We figure that's an opportunity gap, and that's something we've got to fix. Our hypothesis was the 11th grade students at Ohatchee High School during the 2015, 2016, and 2017 school year who receive free or reduced lunch are more likely to have a lower cumulative exam score on the American College Test than those who did not receive financial assistance from the National Lunch Program. And we all know what the ACT is. We all know that it's a cumulative exam that we take at the end of the year. The Alabama State Department of Education requires that all 11th graders take this in the month of April, sometime towards the end of the month of April. And the National Lunch Program federally assists these students that are of low-income families to be able to eat school lunches for free or reduced prices, and it also includes their breakfast. The literature review was big on this. There was plenty of resources out there that dealt with the top bullet there, the quantitative data. Just kind of you really found a lot of different data on scores being, for kids being way too high and being way too low. So it's not really the same problem here at Ohatchee as it is across the nation, that you have lots of problems. There's also problems in other countries. Like we had lots of literature review that came from Turkey, Australia throughout this literature review. So it's a big deal across the whole world. With that quantitative data, their reading and their math levels were also very large. The discrepancies between the different students, the free and reduced lunch and the kids that aren't on free and reduced lunch. And then another thing you looked at was quantitative data was AP placement. As you think about it and the rigors of AP and what goes along with our pre-AP and AP courses here at Ohatchee, that you would think if you put some of these students who are on free and reduced lunch into that class that, it might bring it up. But research shows that you put those free and reduced lunch kids and the non-free and reduced lunch, the achievement gap stays the same because everybody's level goes up and we're not really improving or increasing those scores. We're not closing that achievement gap between the two different socioeconomic classes of the students we have here at Ohatchee. Some of the qualitative data was kind of tough to find through doing our review. You had very few different options out there to find because people just show you the numbers and then don't try to fix it. So that's what we're trying to do here in this action research. How are we going to fix this problem? One of the main things was parent education. Not having parents that completed a bachelor's degree or didn't complete high school, typically they were the low-income parents that students who struggle. Your high-income parents, parents with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, completed high school, but went on to do some type of further education, put more of an emphasis on education to their children at home. So it kind of makes a big deal, and that kind of starts to begin the achievement gap that you have. One of the bigger things that we found that early childhood education is the #1 factor in improving and narrowing this achievement gap, because with the early childhood education, when the kids at the ages of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade begin to really grasp the concept of education and, hey, I'm bettering myself, and begin to really love school, they do better as they go on throughout school. Quality of teachers was another big thing. You see a lot of times in urban areas you have low-income students because you live in these urban areas, not a lot of money there. Low-income areas also come teachers who aren't highly qualified. Not having highly qualified teachers, not having teachers who are in the field of education but don't have an education degree. Research shows that students and teachers that go through these educational degrees perform much higher even than somebody who has a master's just in a background of, say, biology, and they come to teach. And then the last thing there, like I said, the opportunities. That was the biggest thing, the biggest standout about this whole research. The kids who are of low income, who do receive free and reduced lunch, do not have the same opportunities of students of higher income families. They don't get it at home, they don't get it at school, they don't get it at school because teachers can become frustrated and things of this nature with those types of students. So our action plan that we've come up with here at OHACHI is going to include our 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. That's 233 students, and 123 of those are on free and reduced lunch, which is a pretty big number. It's somewhere around 52 to 53%. So we've got to figure out what can we do as a school to bring that achievement gap up between those, because if we can raise those scores, if we can take that 3.8 and change it to a 2, all right, an average of 2, if we can take the 5 on the ACT reading and change it to a difference in 3, our ACT scores as a school go up too. Like this previous year, we were number 36 in the state in ACT scores. So if we can just improve these kids, we might find ourselves somewhere, maybe even in the top 20 in performing on the ACT. The design, we're going to use strategies class. Here at OHACHI, we have a strategies class from 10:15 to 10:45. Every Tuesday, a teacher will take, what we're going to do is we're going to have a teacher use the different strategies that we've provided, that the administration has provided, the professional development they've provided, to teach either ACT Science on that Tuesday, ACT English, or the math part. And so what they'll do is they'll go in, they'll use that strategies class to do that. On Wednesday, they'll teach ACT reading. Every Tuesday is one subject, every Wednesday is reading. Putting a big emphasis on reading, because reading is involved in the English, reading is involved in the science, and obviously the reading portion of it, and even sometimes the math. That's right, Coach. Yes. That's right. All right. And it's not the funds, it's going to be very low. The funds will be real low because you have access to all types of ACT practice tests for these kids. The only thing that we will have to spend on the ACT funds is for our 10th graders and our 12th graders to be able to take the ACT. We'll have to purchase that as a school to be able to allow them to take that test. And then so go back to the strategies class. They got the strategies class on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and then us as teachers will mentor the kids who are on free and reduced lunch on that Thursday. Put them in a collaborative environment and let them sit down with that teacher and their different, their other peers that are on free and reduced lunch to break down these tests. Why did I not get this question right on the reading portion? Why did I not get this right on the science portion? And let them talk through it and kind of teach them how to take that test a little bit better. We will have teacher meetings once every month to kind of discuss what are some more strategies that we can do as a faculty, some newer ones we can use to help the students. We'll have parent meetings. We'll have a parent meeting every month after the teacher does their professional development. Professional development for the teachers will be in August, September, January, and April. So what we'll do, we'll have a parent meeting in August, and then we'll come back in October after the teachers have done their professional development in September, put together these strategies for these parents to be able to use at home, make it mandatory that they come and and, kind of try to use these strategies at home. And then we'll have one in January, or the teachers have a meeting in January, and then in February, parents come back in. And then also April, parents come back in May. So it'll kind of help. And one thing we can do in these parent meetings as a school in October and in February is provide teachers or provide the parents with an ACT online prep software, which is pretty cheap, and you give it to the free and reduced parents. And then if you don't give it to the free and reduced, or you do give it to them, and then the parents who are not a free and reduced lunch, they can purchase it for $30. So roughly it's going to cost the school about $1,800 to do this, to give these kids this software. And they get that, and when they come in October and February, we'll have people there helping with technology, maybe if there's some technical problems, teaching them how to use it more, just to help those kids at home. And then with our procedures, we'll have all our kids take a practice ACT test in August. They'll take a practice ACT reading in September. Overall, we'll get those scores. It'll give us our baseline. We'll come back. We'll take another reading 2 months later in November, and then take another ACT overall in December. How far have we come? And we can provide that info with the parents during these meetings too, how far their kids have come in these 2 practice tests. And then the last thing will be another practice ACT reading in March. And once we get to that part in March, April is when the 11th graders take their test that the state mandates. And what we'll do as a school is purchase the ACT test for the 10th graders and 12th graders to take again. So we can kind of go, if we have a baseline, and in December, how far we come. April is the big thing. And then in May, when we have the last meeting with our parents, we can provide the different, what progress did their kids have? How is it helping them to be able to do this stuff? Do you guys have any questions? Do you have any concerns about it, about how it might work?
Have you come up with an idea of where these funds can come from?
One thing that I've thought of, if like we said, if it costs $1,800 to provide these parents with ACT online prep, we have our break area, all right? And in that break every day, we sell our drinks and our snacks and use that money, because I know we make a killing off of it. We use that money to provide this $2,000, which is relatively inexpensive if it's going for the whole school. And one thing that you asked that question, we're only going to provide it to the 11th graders, the free and reduced kids, because of the price, because it would probably cost about $6,000 if we didn't. And that way, every year kids get in the 11th grade, we'll give these free and reduced lunch parents their access to it. That way they can help the kids at home. It creates more of an opportunity. Anything else? More concern?
I know we're talking about reading here, and reading, I say, is such a critical thing at a young age. Have you thought about any ways that maybe we can get into the elementary, pre-K to help with reading?
If we, maybe as a staff, when our CIP team meets, maybe they can go and sit down with the elementary teachers and say, hey, this needs to be a goal for our kids. These are some goals they need to strive towards in reading comprehension. And, they do a lot of reading over there anyway. They've always done the Dibbles stuff. And the only thing I have with Dibbles is how fast can you read, not really comprehension. Make the kids comprehend the information. I think they've kind of went away from that with the Dibbles stuff in the past. And then here are references that we used for our research to be able to help out.